Okay guys, welcome to the live portion of episode 1, and again let me say welcome to the new series. I wanted to do a couple things quickly live with you guys outside of the time lapse. First and foremost, to give you a wider tour of this map and the incredible work done by Steam user Digicube. And again, definitely head on over there and check out this map, download it if you want to try to play it yourself. Send me messages, comment, let me know the decisions you're making on how to go about it. I'd love to compare notes. But this is the interchange that we did, and you'll have to apologize, we just had some rain here, so things are a little bit shiny. But here it is. And before we get to that, though, and talking about the highway system, let's take a look at some of the other little hidden... There's so many little hidden Easter eggs and little cool things on this island. Every time I... on the map, I mean, every time I kind of take a little tour around, I find all these other little things. Like, for example, all the way down here on the edge, you can see that there's a sort of an abandoned dock down here, and a lighthouse right on top of this little peninsula, which looks really nice, kind of overlooks the whole island. Really awesome. And really nice shot here like that. Maybe this could make for a really good intro. I think the moon would be coming up right in that direction in the evening, so I'll have to check that out. But very cool. And another thing that I've noticed over here just in this area is up this direction. Another abandoned dock, but this time comes with it also an abandoned house. So, what is the story here? I mean, I'd love to know. And maybe it's something that we can figure out as we're going through. I mean, this is a part of the map that I don't really plan on getting too deep into right off the bat. There are other parts of this island, other parts of the main island that I want to concentrate on developing first. But, obviously someone had lived here at one point, or at least had some kind of a vacation home or something. And I guess that's kind of what I'm picturing here, that this was like a vacation getaway for somebody. They came here by a private boat, docked it here, and spent some time kind of, secluded and alone at their private little cabin over here, which is pretty cool. So some other stuff. Let's take a look at some other things too. There's something way up here at the top of the map. See if I can make sure I zoom in the right spot. Right over here. Another story that I'm not sure I'm going to get a chance to tell, but there's clearly something going on. As you can see, we've got this boat that is kind of just shipwrecked here, and the only other thing in the area is this old abandoned truck. So, what happened here? I mean, you've got a shipping container boat. Obviously, that's now empty. Looks kind of rusty. Looks kind of old, rotted. It's just kind of hanging out there in the water. And then up on the shore on this big hillside where there's all these rocks, you've got an abandoned truck sitting here. So really nice detail work done by DigiCube. Really nice detail. Stuff that just kind of makes you go, oh, that's cool. Like, what an interesting little Easter egg to find hiding around on the map and kind of the outer portions of the map, which I can't wait to get into why that's there. And maybe when I get around to developing this, we can figure out some kind of story to build around the fact that there's an abandoned boat here and one old pickup truck where there are absolutely no roads whatsoever. So I don't know where that truck could have come from except from this boat. So I don't know. We'll have to figure out where that goes. And of course, the two most obvious and the most interesting to me are these. We've got these historical style ruins over here, and they're really, really cool. And I can't wait to use these in some kind of interesting way, just to figure out, what do they mean for this city, and how do we build kind of around them. And my idea is to keep them exactly the way they are. I really don't want to change this at all. I want to actually build around it. I want to build around this piece of history and kind of capture it there, almost make it like a public place, a public park or something. But if you go over to Europe, and I haven't spent a lot of time in Europe, but I've spent some time in Ireland, and I know that in Ireland there's a lot of old castles that are just still sitting in the middle of town areas, and they've literally built their road system around it because they didn't want to interfere with the history, and they've preserved it as best they can. So again, that's my idea for that one, and for this one as well. This one seems a little bit newer, whereas the other one had castle walls and graveyards. This one has some rusted out cars and things like that over here. But again, I want to preserve this. This is clearly an important piece of history on this island, and we're gonna hang on to it. Now, what happened to the people who tried to live here is a interesting question too. We obviously have two settlements on this island, one over here from different time periods, and they both obviously failed to get any larger than just a small village. So that's another interesting piece of the untold story of this island. Is it kind of like a place where people have tried to come and settle, and for whatever reason those settlements fail, kind of like um, is it Roanoke, Virginia, where people, there was a failed settlement, and we're still not sure of the whole story of what happened to the original settlers in that area. So there's got to be some cool story about this, but it's definitely part of the history of the island that I want to absolutely preserve. So we're going to be building around that, and I think it just adds. One of the things I want to do is turn this area right in here into the downtown. This is going to be kind of the core. And I apologize for this too, this line you have here. I don't know why I have some kind of weird graphic thing going on. And I've tried to correct that, because in other times I've utilized this map and opened it hasn't been there, but it kind of flashes and turns on and off depending on where you are. It's very strange, but I apologize for that, and I'm trying to figure out how to resolve it. And if anybody has any tips or clues, definitely let me know, because I'd love for that not to be there. But anyway, this area here is going to be the downtown of my island, and we're going to develop this portion of it pretty heavily. Now, obviously, you've got a lot of flat, developable land over here, and I'm not sure exactly what to do with that just yet. But I like this bay development here. This bay I expect to be a very important piece of what goes on this island. This beach here, I think, presents a real opportunity. There could be some tourism stuff going on here, some hotels, some beach resorts, but I also want to have some industry in here. This flatter part of the coast right here, to me, looks like it could fit as a harbor. This could be our main harbor. And also another little thing, we've got this abandoned, another Easter egg that I forgot to mention, this abandoned lighthouse, and this one also has a abandoned house with it too. So more of the history, and I think that kind of fits in really nicely with the idea of this portion of the island being the harbor, the seaport, having the historical lighthouse over here. So if we do that over here, what does that mean for the rest of this part of the island? I don't know. Industrial, maybe, a lot of residential. I don't know. Those are decisions that need to be made in the future, but we'll definitely get there. In the meantime, one of the things I'd like to do right now in the live is to show you a little bit more what I'm thinking about for laying out the street system and the road in this area, which again I think is going to be mostly our downtown, and as we get more into this area of the map, some residential, not totally suburban, but some single-family housing and a little bit less dense of a pattern. But what I really want to do is make sure that I can lay out a really interesting street pattern that connects these historical assets to the city itself and preserves them and makes them a focal point. So I'm going to jump out of the camera mode here. We're going to jump into building mode, and what I like to do is just take this path and this really cheap path here, 2-lane gravel road, and just start throwing down roads. I kind of did this already once with this. This is the future general path of this highway. It's going to kind of go in this direction, and I like to do this just for visual, and I can kind of see where that's going to be, and we'll get to actually building that highway and making sure it makes sense with the topography and everything that's there, but let's lay it out first so we can see it. And let's see, so let's get started. As I'm doing that, I'm going to also kind of talk really quickly about some of my inspiration for this and just generally my approach and how I go about doing these things. I'm not a big fan, as you'll see in this, I'm not really going to use a total grid pattern. I'm not a huge fan of the grid. I think it's efficient, but ultimately it's pretty ugly. So I don't necessarily like to favor the grid. This is too big. I don't favor the grid as a style of street development. I try to stay away from it, especially since we're just doing this game, playing this mostly for aesthetics. So let's do stuff that does look really good. And the grid, I mean, I don't know. If I was building a real city and I knew, we were going to have to address traffic problems and stuff like that, yeah, I'd probably start with a grid and work from there, but we're not going to do that here. Plus, there are some really interesting, beautiful cities in the world that do not use grid. And I'm taking a lot of inspiration. I think what I'll do in post is I'll probably plug in drop a picture in right about now, so you're probably looking at it now, of some of the cities. One of them that I'm really inspired by in this is New Delhi in India, which was, this portion of New Delhi was a planned city, and it was planned to be sort of the British seat of imperial whatever in India. And so they built it to be, they planned it to be very, well, I don't want to destroy that. They planned it to be very nice looking, very efficient, and in a very British way, sort of, laid it out so that it would be aesthetically pleasing to them. And in the end, I've never been to New Delhi. I'd love to go, but it looks, just from the picture, and again, I'm probably putting it up on the screen for a second to take a look at it. It looks just amazing, like, from a screenshot. And this could be, traffic-wise and everything else, could be one of the biggest disasters in the world. I honestly don't know. But from pure aesthetic point of view, wow, that's incredible. Another city I take a lot of inspiration from, and a place I have been just a couple times, is Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C. is a design that is sort of emulated and copied, and there's clearly a lot of inspiration between the two when you look at these two cities and how they've gone about being designed. There's clearly a lot that's similar about these two. But if you take a look at Washington, D.C., you'll notice one of the things that they've done is they've taken the major points of the city, and again, this was designed from the beginning to be the capital city of this new country, and they took the design very seriously and kind of accenting and using it as a way to celebrate and call attention to the buildings that were going to be the central hub of government for this country, for the U.S. So, and they did a great job of that. So you've got this national, what they call a national mall, which isn't a mall at all. That's a joke, by the way. And but it does celebrate that by connecting the Capitol, the White House, the Washington Monument, all across one greened area. And then throughout the city, you've got these radiating avenues that connect and call attention to some of these important parts of the city. So that's kind of what I'm trying to go for here, is bring attention to some of the important parts of the city, including those historical assets, and also some of the other things. Like, for example, what I'm doing right here, I imagined, if you take a look at this, let me see if I can get down and get close to it a little bit here. This is like this weird plateau. Whoops, too close, a little too close. This is this plateau down here, and it kind of sits a little bit higher elevation-wise than the rest of what I think is going to be downtown, and we could flatten out the top of this pretty easily. And I don't know what's going to go up here yet, but it's just such an interesting geographic feature, and I really want it to be one of the main points of this downtown. So, of course, we're going to make it one of those central points and make sure that it's well connected with everything else that's going on here. So we've got these two historical areas. I also like this giant big rock right here. So I don't want to destroy that. I might actually make this road kind of curve around it and just encompass it in. And my vision here between these two is kind of like a Washington, D.C. National Mall kind of green space area. It's really just going to be a very thin park, you know, very Olmsted-ish, Frederick Law Olmsted, you know, kind of connecting parks and make an emerald necklace sort of through the city. We're going to have this, we're going to have this, and we're going to connect them with this green space here, and we're going to do a bunch of other stuff too as far as maintaining green. Let's do something like this. No, I don't actually. So what I want to do is I want to do this. Well, let's connect them. And I want to do, actually, no. Now I'm confusing myself. So I had this all figured out, and now it's not exactly the way I had visioned it. Well, I know I want to do this. We're going to go here, and we're going to go here, and we're going to go something like this. Yeah, which means that we'd need to do this. See, and what we've done now is create some other kind of focal point, something here. I don't know what yet, but there's going to be something here, some really interesting feature that's going to connect. That's going to connect this radiated point to this one, and then where these all connect here, of course, is probably going to be our interchange from the downtown. So you get off the highway here, and it immediately takes you to one of these three main focal points in the downtown area. So, and I already have a pretty good idea of what kind of an interchange I want to create there. But that's also a little bit down the road. We're not going to start building interchanges for this yet. So all right, now because we have that and that, we're actually going to do this a little bit differently than I thought. We're going to do that, and we're going to do that. Now we've created another focal point here, something. Again, I don't know what, but we're going to figure that out. There's a lot of space left in between these little points. Oh, one other thing I want to do. This is so cool. There's like this, you can see it. This is like, it looks to me like an aqueduct or an irrigation channel that remains from this ancient civilization, and it just kind of sticks out here, and I love it. I want to use that. So we're going to actually have a road that goes this way, follows that same angle. Yeah, I like it. And again, I don't know what it's going to do from here, because I don't want to draw it over this, because I don't want to destroy this. But it obviously needs to connect with this circle here. So whether you branch it off and you go like that and like that or something, I don't know, but we need to figure that out. But I want to use that because I think that's super cool. So that's one thing that I definitely wanted to do. And of course, in order to make this make sense now, we also need to do that. And even though it's going to be a very short one, that, something like that anyway. So there's a lot of room in between these, and how we choose to fill them in. This might be where sort of a modified grid comes into play, but again, I'm going to save those decisions until a later date when we actually have to make those decisions. And my idea for over here is some kind of looser development pattern, kind of lighter residential, and we're going to have an interchange right about here. And then how we choose to do that is not necessarily going to be rooted in this same road pattern, but I think maybe that's what we'll do in the next episode. I really want to get started on this part here. To me, this is the next portion of this. Whoops. Sometimes I zoom out way too hard. This is the next portion to me that we need to build. We're going to make sure that we get a good road system in here, get enough housing in to get a city started, your basic commercial and industrial uses, and really light utilities. We're not going to go nuts with the utilities, so probably some really simple wind turbines up on this ridge seems like a really good candidate for wind. I bet wind is rated very highly up here. And then, some other things just to, water and stuff like that, just to get us started. And once I think we have some people moving into this area, then we can start to talk about how we go about doing this downtown, how we lay it out, and what we do in between this grid. But I think that's all for future episodes. For now, I want to bring this one to a close and say thank you so much to everyone for watching. I really appreciate that. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you click the like button. And if you want to stay on top of this series and make sure you don't miss any episodes, please make sure you also click subscribe. I'd love to have you for episode 2 and whatever else happens on this island in the future. Please comment if you have any ideas, anything you'd like to see here. As you can see, it's a pretty blank slate. There's a lot of stuff to do and a lot of places to build, and my ears are open to any suggestions or any advice that you might have on where we go from here. So please comment, subscribe, like. My name is Ferris. Thank you again, you guys, and I'll see you next time.